Hi YouTube, Rare Book Reviewer here today to showcase the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft, which includes Senlin Ascends, Arm of the Sphinx, The Hod King, and The Fall of Babel. These gorgeous books have quality illustrations by Tom Kidd, famous illustrator, and also are numbered and signed by the author. In order to obtain this, you will have to get this on the secondhand market, and you're looking at paying between $1,000 and $2,000, probably closer to $2,000 to acquire this, as there are only 400 copies of these editions. So they're very sought after by collectors, as there are many fans of this book series. I'm not going to say much about the book series itself. I will say that I've read the first two books and about halfway through The Hod King. So I love the books. I highly recommend them. And I do want to know what book or what movie or anything that you've ever read or seen do you get reminded of whenever you read this series. And for me, it was the movie Labyrinth. I just love the adventure, the quest that the characters are going on in this story. And I highly recommend it to anybody who's not read it. I think you will love it, this series. So I'm going to jump in. I have marked my illustrations in the books, but I had also covered up my individual number that's handwritten inside the books because I just don't want anybody out there to be able to identify my specific copies. So, but I will show you the features of the book, and we'll quickly go through the illustrations. I hadn't seen anything else out there that really showcased all the illustrations, and I thought some people might want to see those. Gorgeous illustrations by Tom Kidd and just how the books are laid out. So let's jump in. This is the cover to Senlin Ascends. You can see the Tower of Babel, and you see Tom Senlin and his wife, his newly wedded wife, and she gets lost in the market over here, and or taken from the market and into the tower. And Tom is freaking out and wants to rescue her. But he knows nothing, or he thinks he knows much about the tower, but he realizes later that he ends up knowing not very much. And he's definitely discovering things as he goes through this tower. But you can see the gorgeous airships that Tom Kidd drew. And I love how the little details. In the book, it talks about how things fall from the tower. And you can just see that Tom really paid attention to that aspect of the story. And also there are some hidden things in the tower. This red hand comes into play later in the book. There are also cages outside of the tower, which come into play later in the book, and airships that are flying and docking. So let's just take a quick look at the gorgeous details of that illustration, that cover illustration. And then this is the back. This is why I use a Mylar protector, because you can see some scuffing already just from sitting on my shelf. So let's jump into the book. And we see it has textured end papers, really thick, high quality end papers. And there's the signature by Josiah Bancroft. And it says this is a special signed edition limited to 400 numbered copies, which again, I covered that up. I just didn't want to put a way to identify that out to the public. So there's your title page. You can see it has a gold color there as well. And here is our copyright page. There's not a lot of information on this page, but it was printed in the United States. All of the books include a map of the lower ringdoms. And in the book, the ringdoms are like their own little kingdoms, and they're all vastly different from each other. And that's one of the parts that makes the book such an intriguing, great story, is every time Tom moves up a level, it just is a whole new world he has to discover and figure out with his fellow adventurers. And I believe this illustration was made by another illustrator instead of Tom Kidd. So just, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but I want to give him credit. Might have even been Josiah Bancroft, since he signed that. And the Stone Cloud. This is one of the airships in the story. It's an important airship. And we can see the quarterdeck is number 1. That's up there. Pilot station, number 2. Chart house, number 3. See the details within that. Number 4 is the captain's quarters. Number 5 is the galley. Number 6 is umbilical. 7 is furnace. 8 is forecastle. 9 is the harpoon cannon. 10 is the crew cabin. 11 is the orlop. And 12 is the ballast tank. And this illustration is in all 4 of the books, as is the map of the lower ringdoms. However, the way this page is laid out on some of the editions is a little bit different. This title here is in a different spot on some of them. We get a list of illustrations. And this is kind of how the book is laid out. You can see the gold coloring. Let's jump to the first illustration, the Beer Me Go Round. Here's our second illustration, which is one of my favorites that Tom Kidd did. One of the most memorable scenes in the book, too. And they have these little steampunked creatures that go out on the outside of the tower and clean the tower off. So you can definitely tell Tom Kidd read the book before he started designing the illustrations, which all illustrators should do, but I don't always find that to be the case. So this is a member of the Red Hand. Uh-oh. Get way back to the book. And if I didn't say it already, some of the illustrations may spoil parts of the story. So if that bothers you, you should not look at any of these illustrations. But I like looking at them, even if I know them ahead of time. So I think they're pretty gorgeous. And there's a back illustration, too. I'm going to push that one aside, and we're going to look at Arm of the Sphinx. Here's our cover illustration. You can see the incredible amount of detail Tom Kidd puts into this. Look at this big mechanical structure there. And this face is similar to that of the Sphinx in the story. This has a textured blue paper. It's light blue. Again, signed and numbered with the same number. All of my books have the exact same number. So again, all of the books, I'm not going to keep showing this, but they all have the same copyrights. And there you go. See, that's moved down a little bit on this illustration. And they all have the lower ringdoms and the map of the stone cloud in every single book. So I'm not going to continue to show that, but I do want to showcase all of the color illustrations. And throughout all of the books, there are also these little tickets This edition has that light blue, so it uses light blue tickets in between. I remember this scene, or this part of the book. One of my favorite parts of the story for sure. And this is a cool illustration where they're climbing the outside of the tower, fearfully trying to get to the top. And our last little hand-drawn illustration there. I just printed there. It's gorgeous. Here is the third book, The Hod King. You can see some destruction of the tower. A little parachute in the background. Some plants, foliage. And a huge airship. This has, it's kind of hard to see on this camera, but it has an off-green colored end papers here, but they are textured. And there's our first illustration. There's the green ticket in this book, since it has the green end papers. Really like this illustration here. And the final illustration in the back. Jump to our next book, our final book, which does have some extras in it. Fall of Babel. Sorry about the glare from the Mylar protectors. Wasn't anticipating that. This is a darker illustration, so it's a little hard to make out some of the details. I'm going to jump inside to our first illustration. Very colorful and beautiful. Tom Kidd is a master of airship illustrations, I would say, and architecture too, in his style of work. It's amazing what he can construct through his illustrations. The next illustration is way back in the book. Beautiful. And finally, a back illustration here. Now, one of the extras in this is at the end, there's a catalog of the ringdoms, and it has the lower ringdoms, which we visit throughout the stories, but it also has many other ringdoms and their descriptions next to them, which I found very interesting. And some extra illustrations in the back. And textured yellow paper throughout this. Well, thanks, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks for checking out my video.